of the key development in economic sector. And the most importantly, also be able to look at tracking of progress and where we're standing in terms of Namibia economic direction. What are some of the key promises that, happen, especially when our president returned back from 6 days visit in China. It's one of the longest visit that the president can take, and it also say a significant, is giving a significant message, particularly when it comes to international economic relations with China, and also to say what is that Netumbo brought for us from China, and also the delegation that went, what are the new developments out there. And interestingly, we'll also be able to look at the issue of migration, say what is happening, what are the communication, particularly from the Ministry of International Relations and Trade regarding Namibians in South Africa, because as we are standing, there is an indication that over 50,000 foreign immigrants have been repatriated. However, Namibians have also shown willingness of coming back home, especially when we are going to look at that records, particularly in terms of those who are repatriated, and also what will happen to them, especially those who are coming from Cape Town. Let's go and say hi to our brothers and cousins, especially those who decided to say it's better to come home rather than die in a foreign land, or rather than die without dignity. But for now, let's look at a short commercial break, then we'll unpack the events in order. Then we'll be able to look into that context. However, as I indicated, this is a talk radio station. That's why the conversation is not one-directed. It's a conversation that allows everyone to come through so that we can have constructive engagement, constructive conversation, and we'll be able to build one another. So stay tuned. We are here until the hour of 11 there.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud. So
not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person who does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Sime, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-2888-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud. So
not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person who does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Yeah, It's not that Namibia cannot achieve 6% growth in the future because we have been there. But if you ask yourself the last time that we've been there, it's decades ago, especially looking at our economic growth. But yeah, looking at the history of today, particularly the 13th of July, 2020, 13th of July, and also to look at 2026, looking at the context of Namibia, although there are no major historical events that happen on the 13th of July. Worldwide, it's indicated that it's a day of, it's recorded to be the day of the beginning of World Cup, especially looking at key historical events. And it happened in the 1930s, especially started in Uruguay, looking at the key historical events that happened, particularly associated with the day of the 13th of July. And to look at also some of the major and the key development, particularly looking at World Cup, to say when it was started or inaugurated in 1930s in Montevideo in Uruguay. And also understand the history of World Cup, that when it began, it was not a game for Africans until some of the major changes which happened throughout the history of football. But that is one of the things that we need to look at, particularly when you look at today, to say football history, particularly World Cup, has transformed so much, especially looking at the inclusion of African teams and give them a better opportunity and better chance. Because those years from 1930s, it was just the time for Europe, South America, North America, and a bit of Asia. But it was more on the Western world. But you have to understand that things have changed. There are always development out there, particularly in terms of transformation of the football leadership, and also the rules of inclusivity, looking into that. And also to look at today, 13th of July. It's also the birthday of Wole Soyinka, 1934. Wole Soyinka is a known professor, poet, writer, and activist, known very well in African politics, especially being a defiant activist, particularly against apartheid and also colonialism. He's also a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, especially after winning Nobel Prize in Literature. And for you, if you are speaking about history of decolonialization, if you want to change the way you think, if you want to respect yourself without putting yourself down when you are with others, you need to understand and read the history and also literature. And Wole Soyinka is one of the scholars of African literature. You read Wole Soyinka, you read Chinua Achebe, you read Ngugi wa Thiong'o, then you understand where you are coming from and also where you are going. But the foundation of African literature, particularly modern literature, is anchored in writers such as Wole Soyinka. And this is birthday today. And also those who are born today, you must also celebrate your birthday, because the greatest thing that you can do is appreciate life and also understand that not everybody that was born in the same year, same day with you has made it even to the next hour. But the fact that you are celebrating your birthday today, you must really be able to be thankful and also to understand that we are growing old every day. And also don't only look at other people due to advanced age and you are judging them, because one day you are also going to reach that level. Yeah, that is what's happening, particularly looking at the 13th of July 2026, and also in connection with historical events. Coming back to the context of events that have been happening, particularly in the weekend and also pre-weekend, is that the supreme leader of Iran, the former supreme leader of Iran, was buried on Thursday, the 9th of July 2026, after 2 weeks of procession and also burial procession, moving around the different countries. Also went to Iraq, but also looking at CNN, there are also indication that Moshtaba Khamenei, the current supreme leader and the son of the former supreme leader, has attended their analysis of videos, a man wearing a mask to say yes, supreme leader is alive, and he attended his father's funeral. But looking at history, because when somebody is speaking about the late Ayatollah Khamenei, is not only speaking about Iranian leader, but he was known to be the Imam, particularly looking at the Shia religious, and he was a known figure in religions and politics, especially looking at the Middle East. But what is interesting is that his name is associated with global events which are currently happening, which have been happening, which has also changed. It also changed the trade of oil, which has also changed and shaped the world as it is now. Because after his death, the 20th of February 2026, things have never been the same. The price of oil has never been well. Trade have been impacted, and also the developing world has been crying. And also the downtrodden, those who are at the edge of economic inequality, they continue to suffer. And it seems like things are not coming to an end, especially regarding global peace. And this also our hope and wish to say when our president is back, which is currently home, what is that new that she brought for us, especially in the most unprecedented time in history of humankind, particularly looking at events that shape not only what we eat, but also what we think, what we should focus on, and also the direction of our future, particularly the developing economy. So, before you look at issues of illegal migration, especially looking at the records and also what the Ministry of International Relations and Trade has spoken about, let's look at a short break. Then we'll be able to look at the 72 Namibians that voluntarily gave themselves to come to their own country to be repatriated. What would happen? What are some of the measures that are going to put in place by the ministry and also by the relevant authorities, particularly integrating people back at home? Because there have been an indication to say no, when it comes to Namibians, South Africans, they are not going to do anything. But 72 people who voluntarily repatriated understand that there is something cooking there. We can say whatever we want to say, but for 72 people to say they want to come back home, know that something is not right there. And also we must also be able to find ways on integrating people back into their community. Because what happened in Ghana is that when people returned from South Africa, they were not just given counseling, but they were given also finance, and were also given transportation to take them to their house, and also a special program that allowed them to come back. Because if somebody had been living in South Africa for 5 years, and the person left the husband there, and the kids, and the person also left his source of the economy, understand that this person, when come back home, is coming back home and is going through a lot. And that's why integration is what is necessary, because bringing a person back to the community and also make sure that he is not only integrated physically, but economically, so that we'll be able to cope, even to keep up with what has been happening, especially around the new environment. So stay tuned. We are here until the hour of 11.
lipurane ngeno wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondudu toingida ashike kapeno nwe kudite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna evitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayoloka opone ushendife nawa nokumona oijamo ili nawa ningekwata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud. So
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its
Eagle
staff.
FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud. So
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Yeah, Katusha asked a question to say, why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have a capacity to build? Are we still doing that? Are we still giving tenders to people that do not have capacity to build? And when are we going to build our country? When are we going to put our country in order? And when are we going to grow our economy? And also upgrade human development? And also to say, are we diverted in terms of our economic direction? Because one thing that you hardly hear is how many people were taken out of poverty. How many people were taken out of poverty, particularly when you speak about human development. We are more focused on infrastructure. We are more focused on connectivity, which is quite necessary. But we really stand and pay attention to say, among the infrastructure which are standing, these are the numbers of people that are benefiting. These are the numbers of people that are having services. These are the numbers of people that are satisfied about life and are satisfied about the current services. Because one of the things that is putting Namibia in a difficult corner is not necessarily about building infrastructure. It's not necessarily about building schools and universities. It's about the impact that which was built has on people. Having beautiful building is one thing, having infrastructure is one thing, but also having people that contributed to the establishment of those infrastructures, and also people that are benefiting from those infrastructure. People that are not only the user of devices, but the producers of devices. The only question I'm always asking myself is that when I look around things, wherever you are, either it's at your office or at home, if you continue ask yourself these questions to say, how many of these things are made in Namibia? How many of these items are made in Namibia? Starting from the food that you are eating, the clothes that you are wearing, the devices that you are using, the electricity even that you are using, the cables and everything. How many of these things are made in Namibia? And if you don't have an answer, or only you have one or two, even the toothpicks that we are using, understand that you are still very far. You are still at the mercy of the world, especially when it comes to what you want to get into in terms of human development. And do not forget that Namibia is still the second highest unequal country in the world, not in Africa, in the world, next to South Africa. That is still something that I think emphasis must go on, and the voice must be louder to say, how come we have economic inequality even than Sudan, even than Guinea-Bissau, even than Somalia? How come is that? Is it really the structure that is not going to change? Or is only that we are not willing? But yeah, let us look at what happened. Looking at the document that was released yesterday by the Ministry of International Relations and Trade, particularly regarding the issue of South Africa, it is stated that voluntary repatriation of Namibian nationals from the Republic of South Africa. The statement has indicated that the government of Namibia successfully undertake first phase of voluntary repatriation of Namibians national from Republic of South Africa through coordinated, safe, and orderly process. That is what the ministry has said. And so far, 72 verified Namibian nationals were repatriated from Cape Town and are expected to arrive in Namibia. That was yesterday. To say our family members from Cape Town, our friends and colleagues who decided to say, no, we are going back home. They must be already here, 72 of them, especially those who decided to use that opportunity. And the question that you're asking yourself, how many Namibians are still there, especially without documents? How many of them are still there? And also, what will happen, especially when they come back home? And the question that you should also ask yourself is that if you conduct a study on these people to say what were some of the pushing factors, if you look at the records of these people that went to South Africa and without documents, look at their economic status, look at their academic background, look at their age range, and analyze them properly. When you analyze this data, they will tell you the reality of what's happening in Namibia and also what we need to do, and also where they're living a better life in South Africa compared to here in Namibia, or they were just doing their best. Those are some of the things that you need to look at. And the other aspect, you also need to thank the Namibian government at the point of protecting our people. Know that it's mostly, or it's unlikely, that so far, looking at the history of Namibia, particularly in the past years regarding repatriation of people, even in conflict zones such as Ukraine, you'll be able to realize that no, they really work very hard to make sure that the students are brought back and things are well coordinated. The question is that problems that we already have in Namibia, plus these 72 people, are they skilled? What level of education do they have? What were they doing in South Africa? What jobs they were doing? And also, did they leave their properties there? Because one thing that shocked me is that when I was listening to the minister in the presidency, particularly from South Africa, she said, no, there are no left properties by foreigners, especially if they're in informal sector. And when something is informal sector, it means it is illegal. But I was asking myself a question to say, how can you communicate really like that? But that is what is happening. There are more which are still coming. There are more which are still coming, especially from South Africa. Know that the current record is standing at 53,000 foreign nationals that were repatriated, and also ask yourself a question to say, if these people were doing the unskilled jobs in South Africa, what the level of impact that gap will have on the economy, what the level of impact that will have on where they have been living, on the service that they were giving, and also how many relationships are broken. Because what people do not know is that human beings don't only travel for economic processes or economic activities, they also find love. Even if you go to refugee camps, people are, love is always there. That's why when you divide these people, you do not only remove the person from the means of production or closer to the services, but you are also separating families. That's why integration is not only economic, it's physical and psychological too. How many lives were broken, and also what will happen moving forward. But what is necessary in this aspect is that when we are looking at issues of illegal migration, for example, what can we do to make sure that in terms of long term, we don't repeat the same with other countries? Because it has broken relationship, even diplomatically. That's why next month, Ramaphosa was supposed to travel to Ghana, but they say, no, uncle, you are not coming here until we solve that issue. You are not coming here for now. Imagine a president being told to say, your state visit is not going to happen now. You still have to take it down for now until we solve that issue. Know that whatever happened in the social aspect of life, economic aspect of life, has a direct impact at a national level and at a bigger structure. The question is that, are we ready to accommodate and feed the 72 that are coming from South Africa? And also, what can we learn from this event? A lot of people, they blame South Africa, but we should also blame ourselves to say, why do you have a house and your kids are jumping out of the house and go eat at the neighbor? Why do you have that? The same thing with Zimbabwe, same thing with Namibia, Angola too, to say, why do you have children in the street asking for $1, just $1? You really want to tell me that these children do not have a future in an industrialized Africa? Or these things are just going to continue like this? Why do you have Africa, where you have, when people are saying, no, Africa, you have a youth potential because 70% of your population is young. The question is that, where is that 70% of that population which is young? Are we utilizing that 70% of the population which is young in Africa? Or the young population is the one which is in the street asking for $1? People are building data centers, but we are in the street asking for $1. When are we going to, upgrade ourselves? But that is a question, that is a critical question that we need to ask ourselves, to say, what can I do to make things great wherever I am? But for now, let's look at a short commercial break and come back shortly with Unpacking the Day. Remember that we have the Villager newspaper, we have our e-paper that you should not only follow us, like and share, so that when it comes to issues of developmental statistics, finance, agriculture, trade, banking, we have you, we got you. You just need to like and share the Villager newspaper. Then also be able to look at what is in there for today. But for now, let's come back shortly. Stay tuned. We are here until the hour of 11. And as I indicated, you can still engage us in the studio at 083 288 401, 083 288 401.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional, and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 2888 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranengelo wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondo totoingida ashike kapeno nweku tite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamo nawa ningepata fanona Monica ko Eagle FM onora itatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu matatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Wherever you are, the Villager newspaper will be able to bring you content and also developmental statistics and everything that affect our bread and butter. To look at on top of the page of our e-paper, stated that Namibia spent 46.2 billion on consumable imports. Those are the statistics that Namibia consumers have spent 46.2 billion importing consumable over the past 5 quarters of 2025, according to Mekadai's account. And that says a lot about where we spend our money. If we spend our money more on food, who are we supporting? If I spend more money on buying apples and banana, where are these items coming from? If I'm buying, finished products already, clothes, whose job am I supporting? Am I supporting the jobs of people that are at Sirongo Leather or Dinapam, or few Namibian retails that we have? Or am I supporting a factory in Malaysia, a factory in South Africa, in Switzerland? Because if you ask yourself a question to say, could we save this money, particularly in some of the items that we can make on our own? Are we still at the process of coming up with industries in Namibia? Just even clothing. But yeah, that is what is happening. But when you look at page 3, stated that looking at Kavango East, stated that Kavango East received over 380 million for 2025-2026 financial year. And that is one of the regions that is struggling with social economic issues. That is what has been stated. And also listening last week to Governor Mbuka, apart from delay in terms of infrastructure development, apart from fragmented coordination, you can also see that there have been measures that have been put in place. But the question that we should ask ourselves is that apart from now presenting the records of data, do we track the speed of our development? Are we able to reach that speed that we want to get into? Because it's not, it's undeniable that Namibia is developing. Namibia is moving toward industrialization. But the question that we're asking yourself is that, is it moving toward industrialization during our lifetime? Or is it moving toward industrialization and we are going to be industrialized maybe when I'm already 70 years old? You don't know how old I am, but maybe when I'm already 70 years old. And are we going to keep up with the growth of the population? Are we going to keep up with the issues of urbanization? And how can we do that? Are we able to track the progress of our development? Not only the direction, but the speed too, to say what is the velocity of our development, especially human development. Page 4, you have advertisement. You have YouSave, where you can be able to get the commodities that you want from mixed portions of chicken, nice rice, and many other products. Looking at page 6, stated that Namfisa, Novanam, Oshakati TC, and AB InBev affirmative reports are rejected. That is what is happening. You know, one of the things I appreciate much is that currently, as we are speaking, when you look at committees that are holding people accountable, they are starting doing their job, but the Employment Equity Commission has disapproved affirmative action reports of 7 companies and public institutions for not meeting the requirement of affirmative action Employment Act, according to the updates that was released by Commission last week. Stated that 7 companies and public institutions, including Namfisa, Shakati Town Council, Novanam Group, City Lodge Hotel, Notam and AB InBev, and Otapi Town Council, they did not meet the Affirmative Action Employment Act. And somebody may also want us to say, when somebody asks about Affirmative Action and Employment Act, what does it mean? Who are those people that are included? You speak about issues of gender equality. You speak about issues of recognizing people with disability, and also giving special treatment, especially to those that did not get the opportunity to start at the same lane with others. So that's why, if this Affirmative Action Act is not implemented, the issues of economic inequality in Namibia will persist for a long time. And being number 2 in the world is not something that we should be very happy with. It's not really something that we should be very happy with. We've been number 2 in the world. Even when we were at the upper middle income country, we are still number 2. But that is something that we need to look at. So looking at page 7, it stated that e-taxi in Namibia, local player, enter e-hailing market. So the world is moving toward digitalization. And also the traditional taxi industry, I'm not saying it's dying, but it's faced with new player. And if you are not advancing yourself, you end up being eliminated by competition. Because when competition in business comes, it's how innovative you are. Otherwise, you get eliminated. Without without innovation, you get eliminated. So, page 8, Look at China availed 5 agriculture experts to Namibia. Stated that Namibia has welcomed 5 new Chinese agricultural experts under the FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization, South-to-South Cooperation Program. We are getting experts from China, especially when it comes to upgrading our economic our food security. But the question is that what do we really need in Namibia? Do we need an expert? Do we need an industry? Why is it so difficult for Namibians to produce their own food? Do we need an external expert or do we need a local expert? And what are we getting from this expert, especially when it comes to agriculture? And believe me, we have been getting expert. It's not a matter of underestimating somebody who was given a responsibility to come to Namibia. We've been getting expert, climate expert from our developmental partners, our EU. But if you ask somebody now to say, regardless of prioritization of our green schemes, where are we standing? Can we have clear records of all the green schemes now to say this is the production? After intensification and revamping of all of them, where are we standing? Because if we are not able to answer that question, we will start realizing that it's not really the experts that we need, but we need to be more focused. We need to work together. We need to have our hands on and do what needs to be done. And we also need to account for things that we have done. But for now, let's look at a short commercial break and come back, continue with the conversation. As I indicated, you can still engage us in the studio at 083 288 401 or 083 288 401.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its
Eagle
staff.
FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081.
This winter, Washamba Mall is turning your shopping into winning. Spend 200 Namibian dollars or more at any shop in Washamba Mall and you could win a 500 Namibian dollars shopping voucher every Friday. The more you shop, the more chances you have to win. Don't miss out. Visit Washamba Mall in Ondangwa from 3rd to 31st July 2026. Shop, enter your till slip with your name and number into the competition box located in the mall, and stand a chance to win a shopping voucher from Washamba Mall. Don't miss our lucky winner live draw on Eagle FM every Friday from 1500 hours.
Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 288 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who doesn't have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranenge no wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondo tutoingida ashike kapeno nweku tite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna evitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamoiri nawa ningekwata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora itatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud. So
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who doesn't have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Yeah, we are moving forward with unpacking the day with me, David Shombe. And looking at South Africa, it is stated that the president of EFF, that is Julius Marema, has been subpoenaed to appear before Madanga Commission regarding the ongoing investigation, particularly looking at political interference. Apart from what happened last week, where he was called to appear before Madanga Commission, where he submitted his affidavit, where he denied all the wrongdoings. He strongly denied all the allegations of unlawful conduct, bribery, and also being in a friendly relationship with crime intelligence operators and crime intelligence leaders, especially who is known as General Feroz Khan. It's also complicated in South Africa out of there because the investigator is also being investigated. The inquirer is also being questioned. And also, you do not know how these things are going to end. But looking at analysts are indicating that when it comes to Madanga Commission, it's one of the most effective commission compared to other commissions that have been happening. Especially looking at so far the impact. And also people will be expecting also recommendation because what has been happening around is just the ongoing process. Even if people were arrested, know that at the end of the day, the commission will be able also to give recommendation to say who should be arrested, who should not be arrested. And if the investigator is being investigated, how many of people are going to be left in South Africa, particularly the top brass of the police, the security agency, and also the political leadership, because how things are turning out now, especially looking at the extension of the commission. Know that a lot of people are expected to appear before the commission, and since the the commission of inquiry started in South Africa. People have been dying. Either it's witness, either it's the suspects. One of the well-known witness, D, was shot down just at the home. And also somebody who just appears, such as Feroz Khan, who was gunned down. Ask yourself, how can you gun down a leader of crime intelligence? That is also one of the things that we should look at. Very complicated. To say the investigator is also being investigated. But one thing that you also need to look at is that when you look at in the next 4 months in South Africa, a lot of things are going to unfold. You look at the competition in the local authority politics. You look at the most contested place, especially the mayor of Joburg. You realize that everybody's putting his head there. But the question is that how are things going to turn out, especially at the end of 2026? Number one, you have the Commission of Inquiry, or Madlanga Commission. Number two, you have Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. The other aspect, you also have Commission of, or the Committee of Impeachment, where the Parliament is investigating and looking at the process of impeachment, questioning the integrity of the President of South Africa. Now you don't know how things are going to turn out. Analysts are saying there is power vacuum, but it seems like Cyril Ramaphosa can handle his problems, like he can still navigate through. The question is for how long, and is this going to be the end of South African ANC-dominated politics, or something going to come out, especially after local authority elections? Because once you lose local authority elections, then know that the future is undefined. But the good thing about human beings is that the numbers can change, but politics will still continue, whether people are there or not. Because even advanced economies, the politics have involved. And also the question that we should ask ourselves is that is the politics of Africa an impactful politics, or is the politics of personal gain? Is the politics of Africa an impactful politics, or is the politics of personal gain? There was a time we had a debate with my colleagues, that is Dwight and Helmut. I said that we still have good politicians in Namibia. We still have good entrepreneurs. You still have good police officers. You still have effective traffic law enforcers. You still have good entrepreneurs and good contractors. The question is that are we mixing them with those who are not good? Or the question is that are we overlooking them? Are we labeling them as others? Because if you really say we don't have good politicians in Namibia, then that is really a problematic thing, because you are undermining the political impact that politics has on human lives. But the other thing that we also need to ask ourselves is that at what level, at what percentage do we have impactful politics, politics of not only policy making, but politics of impact, and also politics of holding each other accountable. See, I was reading, indicating the advice that Tate Sakwasa gave to ASEB, to say you must not be a donkey that everybody ride, but you must become a wolf, especially regarding taking over ACC as a new director general. We are going to wait for a lot of things in Namibia. We are going to be like South Africa too, not in a bad way, to say you don't know what is going to surprise you next, especially regarding what is happening. To say, is a man ready for the job? Is the institution ready for him? Is the man having the stick to protect the interests of the Namibia? And that I mean, does he has resources? That he has power? How are you going to survive with a small budget? How can a mouse pick up an elephant? Or do you need other resources also to go through? Apart from resources, what is the use of technology in fighting corruption? Maybe we can integrate AI, to say AI can also be used. If AI can be used in the military, if AI can be used in industry, why can't we utilize AI, especially when it comes to to fighting of corruption, because we must use it to our own advantage. If resources exist, they must be used to our own advantage too, especially looking at that. So we'll be able to look at what is happening in the continent of Africa. To look at what's happening in the continent of Africa, especially looking at either it's war, either it's Ebola. And really to say, Africa, are we only the continent for bad things? Because there's no day in Africa where you are not going to hear a gunshot, you are not going to hear a child dying of malaria, or people dying of Ebola. Are these really things our own making? Or somebody is trying to distract us? Because it cannot be correct every time emergency is going to Africa. Every time people that are studying developmental studies, especially at the postgraduate level, they are using case studies of Africa, and something which is really paining me. Every time you read an article on international development, Africa is a case study of poverty, case study of war. Are we an experiment, or is it just that we are unfortunate? Do we really need to blame everybody from outside? Or there are things that we need to do, especially when you want to get Africa somewhere. Ebola here, COVID here, anti-immigration here, people dying in the Mediterranean Sea, extension of presidential terms, lack of accountability. You really ask yourself a question, is that, are these things really our own making? Or somebody is sabotaging our development? There are counter-revolutionaries out there, particularly that are sabotaging African development. Are we an enemy to ourselves, or the enemy is still in existence in a different form? Who is the enemy of African development, and what can we do? But let's look at a short commercial break and come back shortly.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranengelo wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondudu toingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshuana onongeshefa yapumbwa kukaraya ko vanhu okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna evitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado nawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayoloka opone ushendife nawa nokumona oijamo ili nawa ningekwata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafilane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Yeah, we are moving forward with unpacking the day with me, David Shombe. Let us look at what is happening, particularly in terms of employment in South Africa and also the impact of migrant backlash when it comes to South African economy. To say when you remove 56,000 people from a population of over 60 million people, how is that going to impact your economy and what industry, what sectors are going to be impacted by that change. But while we are there, we'll also be able to look at how are the migrants received by their home countries, especially looking at Zimbabwe, and what are their stories. Looking at the impact of the anti-immigration protests in South Africa, particularly looking at the economy, it is stated that the data and records by United Nations show that about 2.6 million migrants were living in South Africa in 2024, roughly 5% of the population. Estimates from OECD and International Labour Organization suggest that they contribute, or migrants in South Africa contribute around 9% to South African GDP. Now, with the disruption and the protest of 30 June, that has also been indicated that it will continue every Thursday. It's indicated that the foreign-owned shops such as Spaza Shop, which are small informal shops which were closed down, would definitely have an impact on South African economy. And it was stated that these illegal immigrants have been central, particularly looking at the works such as construction, retail shops, driving, and also agriculture sector, services, and it is stated that it will weaken the informal economy. Now, one of the interesting things about the Black Economic Survivor is that we do not own a lot of things. We don't own banks, we don't own insurance companies. There are few to none of the insurance companies owned by Namibia. Even when somebody is talking about the non-banking sector holding over 70% of the financial assets, it's not your money. Whether somebody is speaking about insurance, either short-term or long-term insurance, even when you speak about investment management companies, not many Namibians own them. Our survivor is in the informal economy. And the informal economy, as we are speaking, has created employment of almost 60%, and its contribution to the economy is bigger than what the mining sector is contributing. That's how interesting it is to say the contribution of informal economy in the Namibian GDP, which is over 26%, is much higher than what your mining, what your Rosing uranium, what your Swakop uranium, what your Namdeb, what your copper and any other industries is contributing. Now, the question is that when you say informal economy employ around 60% of the population, it's contributing over 25%, over 25% to the GDP. Who is operating in the informal economy? The interesting thing about the informal economy is that there are no clear records of who has much on it, but that is where you have also foreign operators We have our friends from Zimbabwe that are selling brooms. They are still in the informal economy. We have Order With Me. You have Fardo. You have the Kapana sellers, the taxi drivers. You have, service industries and many others. But if you remove those people, if you remove the people that are holding the backbone of the economy, then your survivor is numbered. Because if you remove 5% of the population of South Africa, which is illegal immigrants, who is going to suffer is a black person. Because if your child does not have a housekeeper, your child does not have a taxi driver to take him or her to school, nobody's working in the garden, nobody's working in the kitchen, then it's still the black economy that's going to suffer. It's still the informal sector that's going to suffer. But when you look at the financial sector in South Africa, it's not about saying white monopoly capital, but the owners of the means of production in South Africa, the majority are still the white people. The black people, we are still the same as we are here. That's why the logic behind the anti-immigration protest should really be questioned to say, is this the only way? Is going to be helpful? Or is the dead end, especially looking at that aspect? But let us look at, before you look at the gold trade in Tanzania, let us look at Zimbabwe. It is stated that Zimbabweans return to their home from South Africa. Over 20,000 Zimbabweans returned home due to what had been happening. They gave records of their pain and suffering, especially in the hands of the anti-immigrant protesters. But let us look at this news and come back shortly.
Zimbabweans fleeing xenophobic violence and threats in South Africa arrived at a reception center in the border town of Beitbridge in Zimbabwe. Some returnees describe being assaulted, robbed and forced from their homes and jobs, while aid workers provide medical care and transport to their final destination. We came back because there were demands for us to leave the country, and we fear the increasing threats of protesters coming to our houses. The exodus began weeks ago as fringe South African groups stepped up demands for undocumented migrants to leave by June 30th in a campaign that saw violent protests and clashes in which at least 4 foreign nationals were killed. When the march and the march protest started, life became hard. First, I lost my job. After losing a job, I went back home to my rental home, and the landlord refused to take my rent money, even though it was the end. The most painful thing is that I had property in my house, but I could not sell it or transport it with me. As the protesters were saying, you bought it here, it belongs to South Africa, so I cannot take it with me. Approximately 21,000 Zimbabwean nationals have been repatriated through government-assisted arrangement since the commencement of the exercise. According to the authorities, more than 56,000 returned independently through self-repatriation mechanism during the same period.
Yeah, that is what's happening. 21,000 Zimbabweans return home. And the question is that a burden or a blessing? It's like you send kids because you are not able to take care of them. Let me say, no, you are going to your uncle in Ohangwena region, or you are going to your uncle in Sumeb because I'm not able to feed you. But when poverty hit home, you find that 5 of them return back. Now the question is that, is the returning of our own citizen a burden or a blessing? Are we like those parents who say, no, please just go back. I can also not feed your small siblings. Just go back and try. The question is that when 21,000 Zimbabweans return to Zimbabwe, is that a blessing to the country or is a burden? Because they are coming with the skills and experience. We know most of them, they left their properties there. The same thing that we are asking with Namibia too. To 372, Namibians are already repatriated from Cape Town. No wonder to say Mbwiti Kapa are those that went and did not come. Or how? Those are the things that we need to look at. And is that a blessing to us? Are we very happy? Or we just don't have a choice? What are you going to do to them? Because you are already struggling with a burden of taking care of the youth population.
It's my job after.
But the question is that what can we do? Especially to move where other countries are. People are speaking about data centers. We are fighting over a tuck shop in Cape Town. People are speaking about advanced technology, bullet trains. But we are still fighting. We are fighting for a relationship in Africa. People are trying to get their nation somewhere very far. We are still busy talking about the graduation and engagement at the same time. Which to me is actually a very good thing that what happened. But why should that be a debate? It must just be love at a different level. But the question is that when are we going to get to that zone of really being serious about what you want to get into? Because at the end of the day, the structure of our economy is still the same. The intention is different. The voice became louder. But when you read our international trade statistics for May, it will tell you to say you're still not creating enough jobs. You are still selling raw materials to China, to South Africa and other countries. You still depend in South Africa and China. You still not making your own toothpick. When are we going to start? If we're speaking about data center, artificial intelligence, whose job are we going to create? Are we really going to create jobs for ourselves? And if we are able to create jobs for ourselves, are we going to trace the progress of our development? But that is one thing that we also need to look at. Interestingly, other countries are moving forward. I indicated that apart from what happened in Tanzania, post October 2025 elections, you realize to say Meme Samia Suluhu Hassan is really busy with developmental priorities. You understand that at one point got millions of dollars to upgrade youth programs in Tanzania. But the other development that is happening in Tanzanian economy is prioritization of gold reserve. To say Tanzania Central Bank buy 28 tons of gold over the past 18 months for the reserves. Understand that it's not only the dollarization or stopping of a dollar economy or US-dominated dollar economy, but it's also the aspect of strengthening the economy of African countries. To say having a currency that is fluctuating, not backed by anything, is one of the biggest risks that destroyed a lot of economies. But understand that Tanzania bought 28 tons of gold over the past 18 months for gold reserves. So it stated that the Tanzania Central Bank bought 28 metric tons of gold, and that is done with the reason of having a reserve. What people do need to understand is that when a country has its currency, which is backed by gold, whatever happened, whether the economy go down, you still have gold asset that are equivalent to your fund. And the good thing about gold, in terms of international trade, it has continued to be a dominant commodity, continue to be in demand, and a powerful and strong economy have done that before. But when you have a country such as Tanzania doing this, interestingly, it's also that you also have other countries that are selling their gold reserves, especially Malawi. It's like you are selling out your storage, your Mahangu storage, after you are done with your Mahangu. or even your maize storage, but something that need to be looked at, especially moving forward. The other aspect also, that also need to be looked at is that African countries, there is a very good intention that you see from African leaders, particularly when they don't want things to be the way they have been. Number one is gold reserves. Number two is also the aspect of building critical industries such as power plants, such as also refinery. To say why Namibia, a country that had gold for a long time, but we don't have a refinery yet. When are we going to think in that line of refinery? When are we going to think of that line of doing something with our resources? When are we going to think in that line of finalizing the products here at home? Not eat something written made in South Africa because it was finalized there. But when are we going to get to have to that conversation? But looking at Namibia too, when you listen to the communication from Bank of Namibia, understand that prioritization and buying of gold for gold reserve has already started. The conversation has started. The plans and the arrangement has also started, especially holding this economy that does not want to come in order. People have tried, but Namibian economy is something else. We are getting there at a very slow pace until we find that speedometer that is indicating at what speed are we moving. We still have a hope that at one point Namibian economy will also get in order. However, you can engage us in the studio at 083 288 401 083 288 401 so that you can engage us in the studio, give you a constructive conversation. Because the issues of development, you don't have an expert, you don't have monopoly of knowledge and ideas. It's about educating one another. It's about giving each other context and also content of what is happening. And also to say, the delegation that come from China, what is that you brought back with? And also we are going to try to find some and also to interview them, not for the experience, not only to say there are those who just went for the vibes, but you also want to see that when you are coming back from China, what did you bring for us in terms of ideas? What can we learn and what we can unlearn? Stay tuned. We are here until the hour of 11.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its
Eagle
staff.
FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranenge no wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondo tutoingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshuana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamwili nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Yeah, it's 8 minutes past the hour of 10. You are listening to Unpacking the Day with me, Devin Shombe. And we are here until the hour of 11. We are speaking about Namibian economy. There is a statement here from R&J State Land Management Consultants that is looking at Namibian economic future. And it stated that looking at that R&J remain optimistic about Namibian economic future. And also independent studies and consultancy that is looking at Namibian economy, particularly looking at various sectors, are quite worth mentioning. And we'll try to get one of the partners, especially from one there, to speak about optimism and also practicality, to say, you know, with me, I don't think there is something wrong with being optimistic. I don't think when you are very positive about your future, even if people don't believe in it, it's not the wrong thing. But when you are only that, it becomes problematic because you are not different from somebody who is not, because you are not doing it. Although positivity is a good mindset, it stated that fiscal prudence, innovative financial and structural reform would determine whether Namibia can convert opportunity into lasting prosperity. It is stated that the global economy continues to navigate unusual, complex period, geopolitical tension, at which elevated energy price, persistent inflation, tightened financial conditions, and are placing renewed pressure on governments, businesses, and households. And R&J gave a very good analysis, particularly looking at the perspective of International Monetary Fund, the projection of global economic growth, and also to look at the context of Namibia. My interest in this document is the oil and gas. It is stated that oil and gas promise with responsibility. This consultant states that Namibia's offshore oil and gas discoveries have raised countries' global economic profile. They have potential to attract investment, strengthen governance revenue, create demand for local services, and improve external position of the economy. That is what is stated. It has also been stated. Now, what is that required? What is required is that oil and gas will require time, capital, infrastructure, and specialized skills. The possibility is very high that no Namibian is going to touch oil and gas in the next 5 years. No Namibian. Or if there are maybe 2 or 3. Because people speak about specialized skills. We are going to be very far from the industry. We may see the industry, maybe in the industry, but very far. Especially looking at that aspect. Now, The Economist, and also just to give you also one of the perspective, looking at the RNJ, one of the key partners is Dr. Statler. This is somebody who was a key player, particularly when it comes to economic advisory to Dr. Genkop. But apart from looking at that, there are also a cautious advisory to say Namibia should therefore avoid making permanent expenditure commitments against uncertain future income. That is what's stated. To say yes, you must avoid permanent expenditure commitment against uncertain future income, because things must be very clear to say we cannot develop if the world is not in order, because we depend much on the world than the world depend on us. That is number one. That's why this economist is speaking about flexibility, particularly looking at the future investment. If you want to invest in industries in Namibia, know that when Hamas start shooting in Israel, or when Afghanistan start shooting at Pakistan, and there's a blockage in terms of trade, know that your future is also impacted. But that is a different story when you look at China. It's a different story when you look at India, although they are also going to be impacted. But our main developmental agenda is hanging around if the world is going to be in peace. When is it going to be in peace? Now, the economic advisory also indicate that oil and gas should become a platform for industrialization, not substitute for it. This is a consultancy document. It's up to you to say you agree with everything. You also have a democratic right to counter it, to say, no, this is where we should stand. Because we are almost at every project, and we are very optimistic, which is quite good. But the time will tell if we are dreamers or we are doers. It's just a matter of time. We do not need to argue who is going to do it. I don't need to argue with my councillor, with my governor, with the CSO leader. I don't need to argue. And I also don't need to wait for him or her to fail so that I can say, I told you. But the time will tell. You can present your plan to me. I don't have a problem. But if you come to me 5 years and say, Chief, I want us to look at this plan, I say, no, I hear you, but you did not do that. You were selling dreams. But at this context, time will tell to say, time will also define us to say, are we people that get advice? Are we people that do what we say? Are we people that track progress? Because if you want to understand that, time will tell, just look at where we are now. We are in July. Next month is August. August after August is finito. We are in 2027. And also know that 2030 is not the end of the world. We still have a very, very long way to go. But the question is that when these academics, when these consultants are speaking, are we at the same pace? Is this the same advice that the central bank can give? It is also the same advice that government economists can give. This is the same advice that independent consultants and also academics can also give. Are we still speaking it with one voice, or we are still arguing on how we should develop? Because if you bring the expert in one room, they may be very diplomatic, but they are disagreeing to say, no, you just need to invest in this. Do we need to invest more in oil and gas? Do we need to invest in green hydrogen? Do we need to invest more in education? Do we need to connect industries together? Or what do we need to do? Now, the same document also look at financing development differently. The document stated that Namibia development ambition cannot be financed from the national budget alone. Public-private partnership should become increasingly important part of countries' infrastructure industrial development strategy. The PPPS can mobilize private capital, accelerate project delivery, and introduce technical expertise. However, they must be transparently procured. And when it comes to transparency is something that we speak about, but we don't necessarily do it. We run away from accountability. I've seen an investment firm that was asking for liquidation after it lost pension money for Namibians. And I'm asking myself to say, do we understand this thing of offshore banking or this offshore investment? Are we transparent enough? Or we are going to feel pain because of the problem that we have been experiencing years to years. Yes, the document also spoke about green financing to say green financing also presents a major opportunity in Namibia. Namibia renewable energy resource, green hydrogen ambition, climate development needs, country strong position, access to climate funds, green bonds, and sustainability linked to investment. What I like about this document is that it is stated that such financing must, however, deliver tangible domestic benefits. Affordable energy, employment, skills development, local enterprise participation, and stronger national productive capacity. Now, that is what is stated to say it will not help anything if we have all the industries that the world is happy with and we are not working in that industry. It will be a wasting of energy, and it will be also another exploitation of the highest order. When you have an industry, highly technical, skilled industry, even if you do not have Namibian at an immediate start, do we have Namibians in the pipeline that will take over that industry one day when they acquire those skills? Or we are just going to say it's a highly technical industry, and we do not need Namibians for now. Now, there are recommendations and directions given, particularly R&J State Land Management Consultants, where they indicated that Namibia transformation cannot be delivered by government alone. Government must provide leadership, policy certainty, effective institution. Now, just looking at this, do we have what is supposed to be? Do we have leadership? Do we have policy certainty? And do we have effective institutions? Ask yourself this question. If the Petroleum Amendment Bill is not through by this year, is it really going to, how is it going to impact the business of oil in Namibia? Just looking at that, how much of a research institution study that Petroleum Amendment Act, which is quite necessary? And can we move forward? Let me say we get oil by tomorrow, first oil by tomorrow. Can we function properly without guiding laws, without properly amended act? Or is just something that we are overlooking? Because if we are speaking about oil and gas, if we are attracting investment, it will be paramount, it will be necessary to be important, it will be very crucial, it will be needed if you are attracting investment when you already have policies in place. But if we are attracting investment and we are still arguing who is going to control the upstream and who is going to control the downstream, who is going to have power? Is it the Minister of Energy or the Director General or the President? Who is going to have that power? And how are things going to work out? Do we have our things in order? If we want to succeed in oil and gas, and we still have acting people. I'm very happy that NAMCO now have a new CEO, but we still have an acting petroleum commissioner. We still have key players that were supposed to be full-time. We still have a debate to say who should be in charge of Namibia oil and gas. What you need to know is that the debate is not yet over. Parliament did not reject and did not agree looking at the Petroleum Amendment Act. And we are prioritizing other things. The bills are coming out through, but very slowly. When are we going to get there? Those are the questions. Now, the other aspect that is stated is that apart from certain effective institution and also policy, the private sector must invest, innovate, and create employment. Labor must support productivity, skills development, constructive workplace relation. Development partners must help mobilize capital, knowledge, and technology. But RNJ has further indicated that optimism must be met with urgency. That is something that I wanted especially to say at the beginning. To say the country's future will not determine only by what lies beneath its soil or offshore water. It will be determined by the quality of institutions, the courage of reforms, and the ability of government, business, labor, and developmental partners to act together. I think this is our Bible, especially when it comes to the direction of where we want to get into. And there's always something that I'm always asking myself to say, why do we speak about the good things when we are sitting together? But when you go to our houses, we act differently. Institutions come together and they speak so fluently to say there is nothing that can work if we are not cooperating. This is not the first time I'm hearing this. It's not only about from RNJ. Bank of Namibia spoke about this. Public-private sector forum spoke about this. But when you go to the ground, you're asking yourself to say, who is sabotaging the development of Namibia? Who is really sabotaging the development of Namibia? If everybody is speaking about, yes, we need to work together. We need to have a good institution. We need to have good leadership, policies, and also procurement which is transparent. But for now, let's look at the short commercial break and come back shortly with unpacking the day. For those of you who are coming on the radio for the first time or on our social media platform for the first time, this is Unpacking the Day with me, David Shombe. We are looking at economic affairs, where is Namibia standing, what are the new developments, what are the economists, trade analysts, and also future leaders and experts are saying about Namibia development. Where should we prioritize our investment, and also how we can make sure that the needy, especially the young people, are prioritized and get capacity to partake in Namibian economy. Because it's not only the question about Namibia, it's also the question about Africa. When we are at World Economic Forum, when our leaders are at Davos, when our leaders are in Geneva, they speak more about African having potential with young people. But when you come to the street of Namibia, where are the young people? The children are saying Penge Ondora. How do we expect, who is going to hold the Namibian economy? Who is going to work in Angoran expanded refinery project if the young generation are asking for Ondora in the street? Compared to the children in UK, in China, they are already making drones. We are still asking for $1. But that is Africa for you. We are getting there very slowly, but definitely if we follow what we say. So let's look at a short commercial break and come back shortly. You can still engage us in the studio at 083-288-401, 083-288-401.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its
Eagle
staff.
FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-2888-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranengelo wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondo tutoingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado nawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamweli nawa ningepata fanona Monica ko Eagle FM onora itatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile ko nderewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Yeah, we are moving forward with Unpacking the Day, 30 minutes past the hour of 10. You are listening to Unpacking the Day with me, David Shombe. And before we continue with the conversation of African economic development, we look at World Cup update. You know, there's been an interesting World Cup so far. But one thing that you need to know is that the big boys of football, they maintain their position. So you have England, you have Argentina, you have France and Spain. You know, it started with many countries until it got to round of 32. Then it comes to the 16. It comes to 8. Now as we are speaking, there are only 4 countries. And these 4 would determine who is going to win the World Cup. Is it Mbappe or is it Messi? Is it Kane or is it Ismail? Say tomorrow you have semi-final. That is France versus Spain. And who is going to win between France and Spain is going to the final of the World Cup. Then on Wednesday, you will have England and Argentina. So whoever is going to win between England and Argentina is going to the final with who is going to win between France and Spain. The faster you book your place to the final, the easier it's going to be. But it has been a very interesting World Cup. But one thing that you see about this World Cup is that the African teams, they tried their best. However, you also start to understand that you must know your league, you must know your level. Apart from them playing very well, understand that when it comes to that, they were not able to make it, especially to reach the semi-final. Although Morocco tried to reach quarter-final, got defeated by France 2-0. You understand that it has not been easy. But is Argentina going to do it? Is it France going to do it? Is it England? Or is it Spain? And also looking at the top goal scorer. Unfortunately, Haaland is eliminated from the competition now because his team is out. But we have Mbappe, who is at number 1 with 8 goals. They are parallel with Messi. Messi is also having those 8 goals. But you also need to see at the end of the World Cup who's going to be a top goal scorer. Is the top goal scorer going to be the same with the team that is going to win the World Cup? Or how? But is Mbappe versus Lionel Messi. But you also have Kane in the list. But the question is that how are things going to turn out, particularly on the 19th of July. Yeah, looking at what is continue happening in Africa. Apart from Africa with the good intention of developing, with intention of upgrading its economic and also human relations standard, know that the conflict in Africa continues. It is stated that the court in Sudan, or the Sudan military court in the city of Port Sudan on Sunday, sentenced the paramilitary leader, that is Mohammed Hamad Daglo, and 15 others to death in absentia over charges of killing a regional governor and war crimes in Darfur. And the tension in Sudan, conflict in Sudan is not coming to an end. But they say that the military ruling, which is issued by the judiciary functioning under the army, is the first against the leadership of rapid support forces since war broke between paramilitary group and Sudanese army in April 2023. The court convicted Daglo and others of war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, attack of civilians, public facilities, state news agencies, and the 15 of them were sentenced to death, but in absentia. Now, looking at this aspect, there is something that you need to look at when you are connecting the dots to say, why are the countries in conflict? Is it not because of the resources? What kind of resources are those? Is it not oil and gas? And the question is that how do you protect your country from the unfortunate of the world, from the curse of wealth that put countries into very difficult situations, especially when you look at the countries that have oil and gas, countries that have resources. And we should not ignore the aspect of security to say if we are speaking about the economy and you are not tightening the security, if we are speaking about the economy and we want to protect our oil and gas with AK-47, we have already lost the plot. Because currently as we are speaking, and you also must know the people that we are operating with, people that we are dealing with, because the sector of oil and gas has proven to be not only competitive, but also has proven to be deadly. Because international companies, they don't stop their operation. They influence. They don't stop their operation. Whether there is war in Madagascar, in Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, the industry of gas is still operating. Whether DRC are killing each other, whether there is genocide in Rwanda 1993, the oil and the gas industry is still operating. The gold is still being mined. They don't close down. Maybe they just tighten their security. That's why even in Namibia, it's something that we should not compromise to say, apart from us wanting to give opportunity to young people, can you also give security to the key and strategic resources? Can you also negotiate with the country in mind? Can we have that security tightened? Because if it's not, the more you discover something, the closer that case of wealth can come to you. And that is not we want to get into, to say, what can we learn from the rich natural resource countries? What can we learn from those countries who made it through, especially into this situation? And also, what did oil and gas do to countries such as Libya, to countries such as Sudan, to countries such as Venezuela, to countries such as DRC? And the interesting part about Venezuela is that, nobody even talking about Maduro anymore. And it's a very, very poor guy who was just lifted. And it seems like the vice president is very comfortable in this speaking about a lot of good things about USA. You really ask yourself, and it's really something that not only interests me, but it's also shocked me to say sometimes in politics, people that you have trust so much, and you make the person your second in command. After you were arrested, the person got the bread. And I did not really expect that from Madam Rodriguez. Maybe it's a strategy of survival, but as we are speaking now, the oil and gas industry of Venezuela is in the hand of the US. They are the one who are determining the price. Their executive are the one who are in charge. And they give to Venezuelan people, based on what they think. And the president of Venezuela and his wife, they are still in jail. And it's really something that has shocked the world. But you must also understand that when you don't have power and influence, people are focusing. People even forget about you. And for a long time, I don't even hear the word Maduro coming from the word of Trump. It's focusing on other things. The world condemned the action, but for now, people are focusing on other things. But also know that it's oil and gas. When you have a country that has over 17% of oil reserve, know that the life of those who are in charge are also under threat. But he's going to be prosecuted, he's going to be sentenced. Or what will happen. But it's also quite important to be optimistic, to say we should not be scared. Namibia is in the list also of top countries in Africa when it comes to the discovery of critical and rare earth minerals. Understand that it's not only about lithium, It's not only about oil, but also we speak about critical rare earth minerals that are needed for technology, that are needed for AI, that are needed for advanced communication equipment, and many other things. So the question is that are we going to see the tangible beneficials or tangible benefits from these things, or we are just going to watch through the window as we have been watching for a long time? But that is something that we should look at. But for now, let's look at the short commercial break and come back shortly. We have good 19 minutes before we give the mic to my colleague Abigail, but let's look at this and come back shortly.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its
Eagle
staff.
FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
lipuranengeno wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondudu toingida ashike kapeno nwe kutite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshefa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado nawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendife nawa nokumona oijamwili nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM, the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura menace.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Yeah, we are moving forward with unpacking the day with me, David Shombe, and also to look at what has been happening, especially in the politics of South Africa. We are saying whatever happened in South Africa, we are very interested. Even if they did not eat last night, we must be concerned, because that most likely to impact us. When there is peace in South Africa, we are also peaceful. When they are going hungry, we are also going hungry. That's why the politics of South Africa, and also the stability too of South Africa, a lot of people, they wish things to others because they do not like them or do not agree with them. But the fact remains to say, whatever happened in South Africa, which impacted their economy, has a direct impact on Namibia. We may deny that, but the numbers are telling us that South Africa is who is feeding us. China is who is buying from us. South Africa is where we are buying. And that is a fact. And that is one of the things that should remain. But now, it seems like Julius Malema is cornered. Seems like Julius Malema is cornered, especially looking at Madanga Commission. Remember that what goes around comes around. And one day in politics is equivalent to 1 year. That's why people are always being advised to say, when you have that position, do not create enemies. Make sure that you use it to the best of your ability so that you can be given another opportunity, or so that people will trust you. Because if you see somebody fighting for power who has been in power for 50 years, there are indications to say power is so sweet to that extent that you will not even see that the days are moving very fast. By the time you wake up, it's already end of 5-year term. It's already end of 6-year term. It's already end of 7-year term. What you need to understand that at some point Malema interviewed Madanga when Justice Madanga, when he was applying for the position of a Deputy Chief Justice, because Malema is part of Judicial Service Commission. But now on this side, Madanga is saying, Malema, we need you. You need to come and explain, especially looking at the testimony that he gave regarding him and the relationship with some of the questionable characters. But seems like troubles are never ending. But let us look at this, and also I'll come back shortly. As I indicated, we have good 9 minutes before we come to the end of our conversation.
Madanga Commission Chief Evidence Leader Advocate Matthew Cheskelson has led evidence relating to the alleged relationship between EFF leader Julius Malema, suspended Deputy Crime Intelligence Head Major General Firoz Khan, and businessman Muhammad Mo Sayed. The evidence contained in WhatsApp messages between the three men were presented during proceedings on Tuesday. Cheskelson told the commission the exchanges suggest an alleged quid pro quo relationship between Malema and Khan. WhatsApp messages extracted from Khan's cell phone were scrutinized at the commission.
The 10th of June 2021, Mr. Sayed forwards to General Khan 6 messages, which he says come from Mr. Malema, and we'll take the messages and then explain why I say they come from Mr. Malema. The first one was a photograph of a person that's been deleted and that is no longer legible. The second was a picture of an Operation Dudula poster, in which Operation Dudula was threatening to remove all illegal foreign nationals by force and was calling for a meeting on June 16, 2021. And had the threat underneath, if you are operating illegally, you better pack and leave before 16 June. One, do you have any relationship with convicted drag lord? There's a misspelling of drug lord. Drag lord Tumi Marimutu? If so, what's its nature, and does it include discussing crime intelligence matters? Two, have you been in contact with Tumi Marimutu and discussed crime intelligence matters related to the Inspector General of Intelligence and the removal of General Jacobs as head of crime intelligence? Three, have you had any discussions with convicted drug lord Tumi Marimutu regarding the supposed deal made by former President Jacob Zuma and Major General Feroz Khan that he will use state intelligence resources to ensure the election of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as president of the ANC? If so, what security clearance did Tumi Marimutu attain to discuss crime intelligence matters with you as a minister? Those were the proposed questions to the Minister of Police and the proposed questions to the Inspector General.
Malema, however, submitted a written response to the Commission denying any involvement in the alleged Beto Bright bribery scheme. But how does this affect his reputation and that of the EFF? Political analyst Professor Setulego Matibesi joins us to unpack that. Prof. Matibesi, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it.
And good evening to your viewers. In a web of questionable relationship that goes beyond Malema as the leader of the EFF, it does also now affect the reputation of the party, and clearly this is something that I think by now there should be a response, at least from the from his organization, because this attracts public scrutiny, and we all know this may have huge reputational risk for the EFF. And one thing that we should understand, the evidence are being tabled before the commission, and a finding has not yet been made, but fact of the matter is these
to worry about in the legal sense.
Yeah, that is what is happening, especially looking at South Africa. So one of the most effective commission of inquiry, once you enter that seat, the next thing, if you are lucky, you are suspended. And if you are unlucky, if you were not born, if you were born yesterday, then you end up behind the bars. Most of the people that you see, most of the generals that you see, that they came to Madranga Commission, the next thing they see is the face of jail or suspension. But Malema is a political survivor, and also somebody who has been fighting his whole life. That is fighting in the struggle for youth politics or fighting political enemies. Is he going to come out of this corner? And if he come out of this corner of Madranga, he's going to come out of the corner of AfriForum. But as it's indicated to say, powerful men, they are defined by battles. To say life is war and it's painful. And if you are avoiding pain, do not expect to grow. You must continue fighting. Otherwise, you got eaten. But that is what's happening. So looking at the last news, also the case regarding Kate Matara, that is the main guy, the businessman who is at the center of controversy regarding the tender of providing medical care to the police, the tender which costs around 300 million rands, suspected of bribery, kidnapping, and many other things. Today, he withdrew his pre-agreement because he wanted to make a deal with the state, especially looking at the leniency of sentencing, because the state is saying we want 15 to up to 15 years. He's saying, I'm going to cooperate as long as you are giving me a lenient sentence. But today, Ket Matra has withdrawn his pre-sentencing with state in 228 million SAP Medicaid 24 tender fraud case. Let's look at this and come back shortly.
We're going back to the Specialized Crimes Court in Pretoria, where Griselda Lewis is. And you heard her earlier looking for the NPA spokesperson, Kaiser Kanyako. Well, she has found him. So let's take you back to Griselda.
All right, let's hear questions being asked from the media. So we'll take this one live.
That the NPA IDAC had been hoping for. This essentially means that the whole plea agreement that you reached with the defense has collapsed.
No, thank you very much. And definitely it has collapsed. Obviously, there's a ruling now that the plea agreement is null and void. And we really have to accept what the court has indicated. Obviously, it was not within our control as we had agreed. And then there was a change of sentence. And they had the right, obviously, in terms of the law, to either agree or not agree, which they did not do today.
This essentially means, Mr. Kganyago, that you have to go back to the drawing board. Anything that was reached in that plea agreement, including what we understood from this court, was an affidavit which contained the names of very senior police officers who are alleged to have also been involved in this rogue tender. You cannot use that anymore. You go back to the drawing board. He then also has to join the other accused now who have been appearing in this matter. Clarification there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely, because now the plea has been deemed to be null and void. Nothing that was in that plea can be used. Therefore, we have got to continue with our own investigations from IDEC side. And then, obviously, the matter will come back here on the 11th of September. And what will then happen is we'll then ask for the court to then rejoin him as accused number one in the other case, so that he can now be tried. Because by not accepting the plea, he's basically saying, I will want to go full force with the trial. Therefore, that's what is going to happen.
Mr. Kganyago, Slindo Lesibata from ENCA, how confident is IDAC with the investigations and the evidence you have so far? I mean, this plea deal was certainly going to be a win for the National Prosecuting Authority. It's null and void. You can't use anything he said in his statement. How far are you with the investigations of those he did implicate in his statement?
Yeah, obviously you would know that our matter in the other case was not dependent entirely on the plea, because we had already arrested people who were involved in this, and therefore we arrested them on the basis of the evidence we have against them, because we would not have done that. Therefore, the plea agreement came after. It was just to add more people that were going to be mentioned in the plea. Therefore, we'll do our own investigation and then get our own evidence. If it leads to all of them again, therefore, they will be arrested as per the way we did with the other ones.
Mr. Kganyago, Veronica Makwadi here from Newsroom Africa. The question that I have is, and perhaps you'll take us into your confidence, it seemed as though Matlala was willing to play along with the state when we initially, of course, got into this plea agreement. What's the reason behind the U-turn, and do you fully believe that he is comfortable with this particular decision? Because it seems as though from the atmosphere that we got in the courtroom, when his lawyer, of course, joined in on this matter, a lot of the situation suddenly started to change, if you will.
No, we all of you were here, and you could see what was happening in the previous one and even now. But obviously, we don't know what is happening behind the closed doors somewhere. Therefore, we will just take it as it is. That's why, if you see, the magistrate doesn't only take what the lawyers are saying. They've got to confirm that you, as the accused, agree. And that's what was important.
Yeah, that is what is happening, particularly looking at South Africa. And who was speaking is the spokesperson of South Africa National Prosecution Authority, looking at what is happening regarding corruption. And also know that it seems like the system in South Africa is thrashing itself. And the people are very serious about thrashing out those who are blocking the system. But for how long? What can we learn? And also what this will bring. So from me, Devin Shombe, bye-bye for now. See you around. And I'll leave you in the good hands of Abigail. Sharp, sharp. and enjoy your week.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its
Eagle
staff.
FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal.
Scandal.
Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You're the person who does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past. And it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud.